My beloved child, something is trembling in the unseen realms right now, and the moment you open this message, a shift surged straight through the spirit world. Archangel Michael stands closer than he has ever stood before, his sword burning with righteous fire, because the words you are about to hear are not ordinary, not gentle, and not optional. They are charged with a warning, one that carries the weight of heaven's anger and the thunder of divine urgency. The title you saw: God is very angry with you. This is the last time I'm flashing this on your screen. Don't test my patience. Open this within 30 seconds or you alone will be fully responsible for what's about to happen. This is not intimidation. This is intervention. This is heaven interrupting your life before something collapses that you never intended to lose. Listen carefully. When God grows silent, a person can still walk normally. But when God grows angry, the air changes. The dreams shift. The protection you once felt becomes thinner. And suddenly, warnings come in ways you cannot ignore. Dream flashes, repeated signs, strange heaviness in your room, sudden emotional storms. And now a message appearing before you in a moment you can't explain. Archangel Michael is revealing this because you have entered a dangerous spiritual intersection where divine patience is running out, not because God hates you, but because he refuses to let you destroy your destiny with your own hands. You may not see it, but the enemy has been circling you for months, watching weaknesses, watching delays, watching the moments you almost gave up. And every time you drifted off your path, heaven sent gentle signs, subtle nudges, quiet whispers. But you didn't slow down. You didn't listen. You kept carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours. Now, the gentle whisper has turned into a divine alarm. And Archangel Michael is saying this clearly. This is the last time heaven will warn you in this softness. If you ignore this, consequences will move swiftly, not as punishment, but as the natural result of ignoring a divine protection you desperately need. My dear soul, you have been walking into battles without armor. You have been trusting people who smile in your face but curse you behind closed doors. You have been hiding wounds that need healing but pretending they are gone. God is not angry at you for failing. He is angry at you for settling, for tolerating darkness, for letting the enemy have access to rooms in your life that should have been locked long ago. You feel this truth in your spirit even now. Your heart is tightening, not out of fear, but recognition. Because you have known for a long time that something needed to change, but you kept saying, "I'll deal with it later." Now later has run out. Archangel Michael is positioned beside you at this very moment, not to comfort you, but to confront what has been draining your strength. His wings are spread, creating a shield around you, because what is about to unfold in your life requires angelic intervention. You are standing on the edge of a spiritual turning point, and the next step you take will determine what enters or exits your life in the coming weeks. Heaven is angry because you have allowed yourself to be spiritually unprotected. Heaven is angry because you have been delaying your purpose. Heaven is angry because you have been tolerating attacks you have the authority to defeat. Heaven is angry because you keep returning to cycles God already told you to break. But my child, here is the truth. Archangel Michael is pressing into your heart. Anger is not the end. Warning is not the punishment. Warning is the gift. Just like a parent snatching a child away from a moving car, heaven is pulling you sharply because danger is too close, and time is too short for gentle words. You may think this message found you by accident, but nothing about this timing is accidental. Some of you weren't even supposed to be online right now, yet here you are because heaven arranged this moment with surgical precision. God is not just angry, he is interrupting your timeline before something irreversible occurs. There is someone around you whose presence is draining your destiny. There is a decision you've been avoiding that must be made now. There is a spiritual attack that has been gaining access because your guard has been down. And if you don't confront this, if you don't wake up spiritually, your next season will look nothing like the one God designed for you. Archangel Michael whispers now, firm yet filled with divine authority, do not push this moment away. Do not ignore what is being spoken. Heaven is speaking because heaven still believes in you. This message is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to shake you awake. It is meant to break the fog the enemy placed around your mind. It is meant to call your spirit back into alignment. The anger of God you feel is not wrath toward you. It is His fierce love protecting you from what you cannot see. And child, you have 30 seconds in the spirit realm. Not literal seconds on a clock, but a divine countdown where you must decide whether to keep walking blindly or finally step into the awakening your soul has needed for so long. Archangel Michael is ready. Heaven is watching. Your next move matters. If you are ready, if your spirit is stirring, if you feel something shifting even now, then stay with this message. What comes next will open your eyes to the truth behind heaven's final warning. My cherished soul, the moment you entered this next phase, the atmosphere around you shifted again. Archangel Michael steps forward with deeper urgency, not to intimidate you, but to open your eyes to the silent war happening in the background of your life. You have felt fragments of it without fully understanding. The sudden heaviness when you wake up, the unexplainable tension in your chest, the strange resistance you face whenever you move toward something good. These are not random emotions. These are signals, and heaven had been waiting for you to finally notice them. The anger of God mentioned before is not emotional rage. It is divine frustration, the thunder of a father who has watched you shrink, watched you endure what you should have rejected, watched you carry burdens you had the authority to cast off. This is why the warning flashed across your screen with such force. Not because you are condemned, but because you are chosen, and chosen souls rarely get the luxury of ignoring spiritual alarms. Archangel Michael now reveals something critical. For a long time, someone or something in your environment has been dimming your spiritual sight. You have been walking around with a fog surrounding your intuition. You second-guess yourself. You doubt your instincts. You question what is real and what is imagined. But this fog did not come from you. It came from repeated spiritual interference that you unknowingly allowed to keep repeating. When heaven says, "Do not test my patience," it is not about punishing you. It is about preventing the enemy from gaining even one more inch of your life. Think about the moments recently when you felt drained for no reason. Think about how your thoughts became heavier, your clarity became weaker, and your motivation slowly faded. That is not you losing strength. That is a spiritual battlefield pressing against you because you are closer than ever to a breakthrough the enemy does not want you to reach. The more tired you felt, the more heaven watched closely. The more confused you became, the more Archangel Michael positioned himself near you. And the moment you clicked on this message, the spiritual fog cracked. Your spirit recognized this before your mind did. There is something heaven has been trying to pull you away from. A habit, a person, a cycle, a decision, or even an environment that has been contaminating your destiny inch by inch. You have tried to justify it, ignore it, push it aside, or pretend it will eventually resolve itself. But this is the final soft warning. God's anger is awakened because what you are tolerating today will destroy what you are meant to step into tomorrow if you do not make a shift. You may feel as if life has been repeating the same emotionally draining storyline. The same type of people, the same disappointments, the same frustrations, the same hidden battles. Nothing truly improves because you have been fighting the symptoms instead of confronting the source. And Archangel Michael stands guard now because the source is being exposed. You are no longer allowed to live in spiritual sleep. Heaven refuses to let you remain unprotected. God is angry because he sees what you do not see. He sees the hidden intentions of those who smile at you. He sees the spiritual traps being set behind your back. He sees the emotional manipulation disguised as care. He sees the opportunities you lost because of hesitation. He sees the battles you fought alone because you were too tired to ask for help. And he is stepping in. The intensity of the message flashing on your screen was heaven's way of grabbing you before you drift into a timeline that does not belong to you. Your destiny is too valuable. Your calling is too precious. Your spiritual role is too significant. Archangel Michael is not assigned to souls without purpose. His presence around you is proof that your life carries weight in the heavenly realm. Child, listen. Every time you felt something was off, you were right. Every time you sensed a shift in someone's energy, you were right. Every time your peace faded after talking to a certain person, you were right. Every time your intuition whispered, "Pay attention," you were right. Your spirit has been revealing truth long before your mind accepted it. This moment right now is your awakening. This message is your turning point. This warning is your recalibration. The anger of heaven is not a threat. It is a rescue mission. It is the Father grabbing your hand before you walk into a fire you don't notice yet. It is Archangel Michael stepping in front of you because something was trying to overtake you quietly, slowly, and subtly. And now, you cannot return to blindness. Your spirit has seen too much. Your intuition is reawakening. Heaven is demanding that you rise. But before we go deeper, before I reveal what Archangel Michael is preparing to show you next, I ask one thing. If this message is speaking to your soul, if you feel something shifting inside you, if you feel heaven tugging at your spirit, then stay connected to this space. Like this video so the algorithm knows this message is needed. Comment to engage your own spiritual alignment. Share this so another soul can be pulled out of spiritual danger. And make sure you subscribe, because each message builds on the last, forming a shield around your spirit piece by piece. Now breathe, because what comes next will open what has been hidden behind the veil for far too long. My awakened soul, as you step into this next revelation, the spiritual atmosphere around you becomes even more intense. Archangel Michael does not speak lightly, nor does he appear without purpose. His presence in your life right now signifies that a hidden truth is about to be exposed, one that heaven has shielded you from until the appointed moment. That moment is now. The vibration in the spirit realm has shifted so dramatically that your inner world may already feel different, your thoughts sharper, your emotions more sensitive, your awareness suddenly heightened. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Archangel Michael positions himself beside you, not as a distant guardian, but as a warrior who has stepped into your battle fully prepared. His sword burns with clarity. His wings stretch wide with authority. The anger you sensed from God is not merely about what you have done or ignored. It is about what has been happening behind you, round you, and in the shadows you could not see. Something has been attempting to influence your direction. Something has been pulling at your energy, draining your focus, clouding your discernment. It has been subtle, quiet, almost unnoticeable, but its impact hath been profound. For months, perhaps even years, you have been feeling pulled in two directions at once. On one side, heaven has been calling you, nudging you, guiding you toward alignment and clarity. On the other side, a force has been whispering distractions, encouraging delays, feeding confusion, and stirring emotional heaviness. This internal tug-of-war was not simply mental or emotional, it was spiritual. And now that you are reading this message, the veil that hid the truth has shattered. Heaven allowed the warning to flash across your screen because time has run out for halfway obedience, halfway healing, and halfway awareness. God is not angry that you struggled. He is angry that you settled. You accepted less when you were meant to rise higher. You tolerated disrespect, manipulation, and spiritual interference when you should have walked away. You carried wounds without seeking healing. You allowed yourself to shrink when heaven was calling you to expand. This anger is not condemnation. It is divine passion, the fierce love of a father who refuses to let you be stolen by what was never meant for you. Archangel Michael reveals something now. You have been watched, not by heaven alone, but by forces that recognize your potential long before you did. There is something powerful within you, something rare, something heaven protected. You carry a spiritual identity that threatens darkness. But because you did not fully understand your own authority, you became an easier target for energy-draining cycles, spiritually toxic connections, and emotional warfare disguised as ordinary life. This is the danger heaven is warning you about. There is a person or situation in your life that has been drawing from your spiritual strength without giving anything back. It may be someone close. It may be someone you trusted. It may even be a recurring memory, habit, or wound that refuses to release you. This force has been affecting your sleep, your focus, your motivation, your emotional balance, and your confidence. And God's anger is not directed at you. It is directed at the thing trying to break you. Archangel Michael presses this truth deeply into your spirit. You have underestimated your own spiritual calling. You have been living as though you are ordinary when you were created to carry divine authority. You have been walking through storms as though you are powerless when heaven has assigned an archangel to your side. You have been shrinking when the spirit realm bows to the light within you. This is why the warning came. This is why heaven interrupted your scrolling. This is why this message feels different from anything you have heard before. It is because this is not motivational talk. This is a spiritual wake-up. God is saying, rise now. Not later. Not eventually. Now. My beloved, something in your life is about to be removed. Something in your environment is about to be exposed. Something you assumed was harmless is about to reveal its true nature. And if you had missed this message, you would have walked blindly into a consequence meant only for the unprepared. That is why heaven spoke sharply. That is why God's tone felt urgent. That is why your spirit recognized the seriousness the moment you opened this video. Archangel Michael is now ready to show you what has been hidden. But before that revelation comes, hold on to this moment. Feel the shift inside you. Feel the clarity returning. Feel the awakening beginning. The spirit realm is aligning around you, and every distraction that once clouded your path is losing its grip. And before we move forward, here is your reminder. Hold steady. What is coming in the next message will shake your understanding in a powerful way, and you will want your heart centered and ready to receive it. Trust me, you are entering the most important part yet. Type I receive the warning in the comments if your spirit is witnessing to this message. Lesson code 144 is now released over you. Just as this warning was spoken into your life, there are souls around the world who are still walking into danger without knowing heaven is calling them back. When you sow into this mission, you are not supporting a channel. You are releasing light to those who are moments away from spiritual collapse. Heaven says, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. And today that word is living, breathing, and moving toward you. I am inviting you personally, stand with this assignment. Become part of the shield heaven is raising for others. Every seed you release becomes oil that carries this message further, a torch in the darkness for someone who desperately needs it. When you give, heaven marks it as obedience, not charity, and the windows of breakthrough open accordingly. Speak with action, not hesitation. The super thanks, membership, and PayPal link in the description are not donation lines. They are rivers of impact. Step into them now, with authority. My courageous soul, as you move deeper into this revelation, Archangel Michael stands firmly beside you, his presence expanding with a force that can be felt across realms. The intensity surrounding you is not accidental. It is not random. It is not a simple emotional reaction. It is the unmistakable stirring of heaven preparing to remove, expose, and cleanse what has been interfering with your life for far too long. You may not realize it yet, but this is the part of your journey where the truth begins to take shape in front of your spirit. Not the truth you assumed, not the truth you created, but the truth heaven has been guarding until you were strong enough to receive it. There are moments in a person's life when God no longer whispers. He no longer nudges. He no longer waits for voluntary alignment. Instead, he sweeps in with divine force, because what is at stake is too sacred to lose. This is the moment you are standing in. The anger you sensed from God earlier was not disappointment in your character. It was his refusal to let darkness swallow what he placed inside you. The enemy has been trying to cloud your vision. Your destiny has been under silent surveillance. Your spirit hath been targeted because the calling on your life threatens the plans of darkness. Archangel Michael reveals this now. A spiritual interruption hath been sitting near you, feeding from your energy. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in a subtle, everyday draining manner that you normalized without realizing it. You woke up tired even after sleep. You felt mentally overwhelmed despite doing nothing strenuous. You sensed heaviness enter your room in the evening. You felt anxiety creep in without cause. These were not random emotional shifts. These were signals of spiritual friction. Someone or something connected to you carries an energy that does not align with what heaven has assigned for your life. This misalignment has created cracks in your spiritual atmosphere, allowing the enemy to slip thoughts, doubts, and emotional interruptions into your path. It is why you have struggled to stay focused. It is why opportunities seem to slip through your fingers. It is why your intuition feels stronger some days and muted on others. You have been fighting an unseen resistance, one that heaven is now exposing with clarity. God's anger was not a threat. It was a shield. It was his refusal to watch you drift any further. It was his divine fire pushing back what has been trying to invade your peace. This message flashing onto your screen was heaven's way of placing a spiritual mirror in front of you, forcing you to see what has been happening behind the scenes. You were never meant to fight this alone, and you were never meant to stay in the dark. Archangel Michael steps forward with a message carved into the fabric of your destiny. You have allowed too many voices to influence your path. The wrong voices dilute your strength. The wrong voices weaken your instincts. The wrong voices create confusion where heaven intended clarity. These voices may not be literal people. They can be memories, fears, past trauma, old patterns, comfort zones, or invisible attachments you never fully severed. Darkness rarely enters through an open door. It enters through cracks, tiny compromises, ignored warnings, familiar comfort, habitual cycles. Heaven is saying that you have outgrown the phase of your life where you could casually ignore spiritual alignment. Your calling is too important. Your purpose carries too much weight. The impact you will have is too vast. Archangel Michael does not stand beside the ordinary. His presence confirms that your path carries spiritual influence that you have not yet fully understood. The enemy recognized your potential before you did, which is why the attack began so early, so quietly, so consistently. My beloved soul, something in your current environment has reached its expiration date. The reason the warning felt urgent was because heaven has seen the effect this influence would have on your future if left unaddressed. You were walking toward a spiritual intersection where one wrong decision, one delayed response, where one ignored intuition could have shifted your destiny off course. The message appearing on your screen was not meant to scare you. It was meant to snatch you out of a slow, subtle spiritual decline you didn't realize you were in. Now something powerful is being revealed. The spiritual fog around you is lifting. For the first time in a long time, heaven is opening your discernment. The strange tension you sometimes feel around certain people is not your imagination. The sudden discomfort you feel in familiar places is not confusion. The emotional drain you experience after interacting with certain energies is not weakness. It is discernment returning to you. It is your spirit recognizing what your mind has been trying to rationalize away. You are entering a season where God will not allow deception near you. Heaven is stripping away illusions, revealing intentions, and dismantling attachments that no longer serve your calling. The anger of God is clearing your path. The sword of Michael is cutting spiritual cords. This is why you are feeling a shift, even as you read. Your spirit is waking up. Your authority is returning. Your clarity is being restored. And now, my dear soul, prepare yourself. What is about to unfold next will reveal the identity of the spiritual interference heaven has been warning you about. The exposure is near. The truth is approaching. And once it is revealed, nothing in your life will remain the same. My brave spirit, as you cross into this next revelation, the spiritual pressure surrounding you begins to thicken in a way your soul cannot ignore. It is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to awaken you. Archangel Michael stands even closer now, his presence radiating a shield of force that pushes back every quiet attack that once hovered near your life. You may feel a strange stirring inside you right now, almost like your inner world is expanding. That is because the truth is preparing to surface, and truth always arrives with weight. Heaven has reached the point where silence can no longer protect you. What has been hidden must now be unveiled. The divine warning in the title was not exaggerated. It was not symbolic. It was a literal spiritual broadcast. Heaven tried the gentle whispers, the subtle signs, the quiet nudges. But when a chosen soul continues walking toward something dangerous, heaven intervenes with undeniable clarity. That is what this message is. It is God placing his hand on your path and saying, "No more walking blind." Archangel Michael begins to reveal the first layer of what has been influencing your life. You have been living under a pressure that was not yours, carrying emotions that did not belong to you, and fighting battles that never originated within your heart. Something has been attached to your spiritual atmosphere, feeding on your vulnerability, your compassion, and your fatigue. You felt it, but you could not define it. You sensed it, but you could not name it. That silent draining, that sudden heaviness, that emotional fog was not random. It was spiritual interference. There is a person, memory, or energy in your environment that have been operating like a spiritual parasite. They may not be aware of what they are doing. This is not about demonization of people. This is about misalignment of spirits. When a person operates from brokenness, insecurity, envy, or unresolved wounds, their energy can begin to cling to those who carry light, peace, and divine potential. And my dear soul, you are one of those carriers. That is why the attack felt subtle but consistent. Your spirit emits a frequency the enemy despises, and anyone operating from a wounded place becomes an easy gateway for darkness to reach you. This influence has been affecting your decision-making. It has been pulling you toward cycles you thought you escaped. It has been stirring confusion right when you were on the verge of clarity. It has been creating emotional fluctuations that made you doubt your own intuition. But now that Archangel Michael is revealing this truth, that influence is losing access to your spirit. God is not angry at you for connecting with the wrong people or keeping the wrong energies near you. He is angry because he warned you, and you ignored the inner alarms. He spoke through discomfort, and you called it overthinking. He spoke through fatigue, and you called it stress. He spoke through repeated signs, and you called them coincidences. But heaven does not deal in coincidence. Heaven deals in patterns, rhythms, and divine timing. And when heaven flashes a warning with urgency, it is because danger is too close for subtlety. Archangel Michael shows you scenes in the spirit, moments when you felt drained after speaking to someone, moments when your mood suddenly dropped, moments when you felt watched spiritually, moments when your peace evaporated for no reason. These were the exact points where your spirit was being tampered with. But because you are compassionate, because you are patient, because you forgive easily and trust deeply, you did not realize the spiritual cost you were paying. My dear soul, hear this with clarity. Heaven is removing you from what has been weakening you. This will not be a gentle shift. It will not be subtle. It will not be slow. When God says, "This is the last time I flash this warning," He is declaring that the season of avoiding confrontation is over. You are stepping into a realm where only truth can stand near you. For a long time, your spirit had been picking up on energies your mind did not understand. You felt the darkness before you saw its source. You sensed the draining before you recognized its origin. And now heaven is confirming what your intuition has been whispering all along. Something where someone near you carries intentions, energies, or patterns that are not aligned with your divine purpose. Archangel Michael stands in front of you now, sword drawn, ready to expose what has been hidden. You may feel a shift inside your chest, a tightening or expanding sensation. That is your spirit preparing for revelation. Truth rearranges the atmosphere before it arrives. Heaven is peeling back the veil layer by layer, preparing you for what must be seen. The next revelation will identify the root of this interference. It will show you what has been hiding in plain sight. It will reveal who or what has been influencing your peace, your clarity, and your spiritual rhythm. And once the exposure occurs, the grip it had on you will break permanently. Prepare yourself, because what comes next will connect every spiritual dot you have been sensing for months. Your breakthrough is not coming. Your breakthrough is unfolding right now, even as you read. My resilient soul, as you cross into this next phase, the atmosphere in the spirit realm trembles with anticipation. Something is drawing nearer, something long hidden, something that has been influencing your life in ways you could not see but always felt. This is why Archangel Michael stands in full readiness, his posture no longer calm but sharpened, as though he is moments away from striking down what has been hovering over your destiny. You may feel a shift inside your chest right now, a sense of recognition rising within you. That is your spirit preparing for exposure. The interference around you has lingered far longer than heaven intended. Not because God allowed it freely, but because you did not yet recognize the difference between what drains you and what strengthens you. You are compassionate by nature, deeply loyal, deeply forgiving, and deeply patient. These qualities are divine gifts, but they can also become spiritual vulnerabilities when placed near the wrong people, the wrong environments, or the wrong emotional patterns. Heaven watched the slow draining of your spirit and the silent numbing of your intuition, and that is why the warning came with such intensity. Archangel Michael now reveals the essence of the force that has been affecting you. It is not just a person. It is not just a habit. It is not just a cycle. It is a spiritual attachment formed through repeated emotional access. Someone around you, intentionally or unintentionally, has drawn from your peace like a well. They come to you when they need comfort, when they need reassurance, when they need strength, but they give nothing back. The imbalance has become spiritually dangerous because your spirit was never meant to be a constant reservoir for someone who refuses to fill themselves with their own healing. You will recognize this person or this energy by one unmistakable sign. Every time you rise, something pulls. Every time you find clarity, something blurs it. Every time you feel peace, something stirs discomfort. Every time you regain strength, something or someone draws from it until you feel empty again. This pattern did not begin yesterday. It has been occurring quietly for much longer, forming an emotional link that drains without replenishing. God's anger is directed at the pattern, not at you. He has seen how much of yourself you have poured into others. He has watched how often you have carried emotional weight that was never yours. He witnessed the moments when you felt overwhelmed, yet still made room for someone else's storms. He saw how their unresolved chaos became your spiritual burden. And heaven is saying firmly, enough. Archangel Michael shows you the truth. The spiritual tug-of-war you have been experiencing is not merely emotional attachment. It is energy displacement. Your peace has been feeding someone who refuses to evolve. Your strength has become someone's comfort zone. Your presence has become someone's anchor, even though their presence often destabilizes you. The imbalance is so deep that your spirit has started rejecting their energy naturally, which is why you feel discomfort you cannot explain whenever they reach out, speak, or enter your thoughts. Heaven is revealing this because the enemy used this attachment as a doorway. Not a dramatic demonic attack, but subtle influence, confusion, distraction, emotional exhaustion, loss of direction, spiritual dullness. When someone drains your energy consistently, you become too tired to discern, too tired to confront, too tired to rise. And when you lose discernment, the enemy gains access. This is where the divine warning becomes clear. You were approaching a point where this attachment would begin shaping decisions that were supposed to come from God, not from emotional obligation. You were drifting into a timeline where you would sacrifice your own calling to maintain someone else's comfort. That is the danger heaven refused to let you walk into blindly. Archangel Michael speaks now with clarity. You must detach to rise. You must release to see. You must separate to breathe again. Detachment does not mean hatred. It does not mean punishment. It does not mean abandoning your compassion. It means reclaiming your energy so heaven can restore what has been depleted. It means allowing God to heal you without interference. It means walking into the destiny that has been waiting for you. But hear this carefully. The exposure you are about to witness is not meant to break your heart. It is meant to open your eyes. This person's role in your life was temporary, not permanent. Your presence was seasonal, not eternal. Their influence was emotional, not spiritual. And heaven is stepping in before this temporary presence begins shaping your permanent path. Your spirit has already begun detaching. You feel it. The old emotional weight doesn't stick the same way. The guilt that kept you tied no longer feels justified. The desire to rescue has weakened because your spirit recognizes it was never your job. This is the awakening. This is the spiritual shift. This is heaven preparing you for what is next. Before moving forward, hear this gentle reminder. Stay present. The revelation ahead will tie together every strange feeling you have had lately. Do not drift away now. Trust me, the next moments hold the key to your breakthrough. And before we continue, make sure you strengthen your connection with this mission. Like this video, comment below to anchor your spirit in agreement, share it so another soul can escape the same draining cycle, and subscribe to remain under the flow of these messages. When you engage, you align your spirit with what heaven is doing in you. My dear rising soul, as you enter this next unfolding, the spiritual veil begins to thin with an intensity you may already be feeling in your chest. This is the moment when things hidden in shadow begin to tremble under the light of revelation. Archangel Michael steps even closer, not with anger, but with solemn determination. His wings are not simply open, they are positioned in a way that signifies divine intervention is reaching its peak. You are walking into the part of the message where heaven begins connecting the final dots, and your spirit knows this. That is why your heartbeat may feel different. That is why your awareness feels heightened. That is why the air around you feels heavy yet strangely clear at the same time. The truth is nearing. Heaven hath been waiting for this moment. Every earlier warning, every spiritual nudge, every uncomfortable signal in your spirit has been leading toward this revelation. Archangel Michael is not here for dramatic effect. He is here because your destiny has reached a fork in the road. One direction leads to spiritual exhaustion, confusion, and prolonged cycles. The other leads to alignment, clarity, protection, and power. The problem is not that you are walking the wrong way. The danger is that something has been pulling you off course without your conscious awareness. You have felt this pull for weeks, for months, maybe even years. It appeared in small ways at first. You felt drained in conversations with certain people. You felt uneasy after visiting certain places. You felt your motivation evaporate on days when you were supposed to rise higher. You blamed yourself. You assumed it was weakness or lack of discipline. But heaven saw the truth. You were battling against spiritual resistance that did not come from you. The force draining you came from an attachment formed through emotional access, repeated exposure, and energetic imbalance. Now, Archangel Michael reveals the deeper layer. This attachment did not come into your life by accident. It entered during a vulnerable moment. It entered when your heart was open, when your spirit was tired, or when you needed comfort. Darkness rarely enters through violence. It enters through need. Something or someone became a source of emotional comfort at the exact moment your spirit was unguarded. And without realizing it, you allowed access to your energy, your peace, and your spiritual rhythm. This person or presence did not necessarily come with evil intentions, but intentions do not matter when energies are misaligned. A wounded spirit can drain a healed one without meaning to. A confused heart can drain a focused soul without intending harm. A spiritually stagnant person can drain a spiritually rising one simply by leaning on them too heavily. You, my dear soul, have been leaned on far too much by someone who was never meant to carry such influence over your emotions. You know who this is. Even if the name is not yet formed clearly in your mind, your spirit already knows. You feel a strange mixture of compassion and exhaustion around them. You feel obligated but not peaceful. You feel responsible but not strengthened. They require more from you than they return. Their presence does not elevate your spirit. It dilutes it. And even when you try to step away emotionally or energetically, something keeps pulling you back. Guilt, nostalgia, habit, or emotional responsibility. Archangel Michael shows you the spiritual truth. This attachment has been creating energetic cords between you. Every time they leaned on you, the cord grew stronger. Every time you comforted them, The cord deepened. Every time you ignored intuitions about them, the cord tightened. And that cord has become the route through which your energy has been draining. This is not metaphorical. It is spiritual mechanics. When cords form an imbalance, the energy flow becomes one-sided. You pour. I take. You ice. I lean. You heal. They reopen the wound. Your destiny cannot afford this anymore. Heaven is not angry with you for caring. Heaven is angry because your purpose have been suffocating under the weight of someone else's unresolved battles. God has tried to gently show you that this person was not aligning with your future. He whispered through discomfort. He whispered through recurring signs. He whispered through moments where you felt out of place around them. But because your heart is pure and your loyalty is strong, you stayed longer than you should have, hoping things would shift on their own. They will not shift on their own. The cord must be cut. This is why Archangel Michael stands beside you now. Cutting cords is not a gentle act. It is a spiritual surgery. It requires authority, clarity, and divine backing. Heaven has determined that the interference surrounding your path has reached its limit. Your spirit has outgrown the attachment, even if your emotions are still catching up. Your destiny requires separation. Your next season cannot begin until the weight of this connection is lifted. My dear soul, you are not being abandoned. You are being liberated. You are not losing someone. You are regaining yourself. You are not walking away from love. You are walking into alignment. The shift you feel is not fear. It is release. It is heaven loosening the grip that has kept you tethered to a past season for far too long. And now, your spirit stands on the threshold of revelation. What comes next will not simply expose who or what hath been draining you. It will expose why. It will show the deeper purpose behind this entire season, the hidden intention behind heaven's anger, and the reason Archangel Michael was assigned to you at this specific moment in time. Prepare yourself. Your understanding is about to be transformed. My chosen soul, as you step into this next unveiling, the spiritual air around you grows still, so still that even your inner world feels like it is holding its breath. This is the moment when Archangel Michael lowers his sword to the ground, not because the battle is over, but because the revelation that follows requires your full attention, your full awareness, and your full readiness. You have walked through warnings, through inner awakenings, through the lifting of fog, through the exposure of imbalance, and now you stand at the edge of divine clarity. This is where the truth finally comes forward, not in fragments, but in fullness. For so long, you have been asking silently within yourself, why does it feel like something is blocking me? Why do I rise only to fall back into the same emotional pattern? Why do I feel watched spiritually? Why do certain people drain me without reason? Why do I sense heaviness even in moments that should feel light? These questions were not random thoughts. They were your spirit reacting to unseen interference long before your mind could interpret it. Heaven saw your confusion. Heaven saw your exhaustion. Heaven saw your desire to grow spiritually, but your inability to identify the weight pulling you backward. And now, heaven speaks plainly. Archangel Michael reveals that you have been living in a spiritual environment where two energies have been clashing around you. The energy of your calling and the energy of someone's burden. These two energies cannot coexist peacefully for long. One tries to rise, the other tries to cling. One tries to move forward, the other fears change. One wants you free, the other depends on your captivity. This tug of war is not symbolic. It is the literal root of the spiritual fatigue you have been feeling. The attachment you learned about earlier did not just form accidentally. It formed because your heart opened in a season where your spirit was vulnerable. You were tired. You were longing for connection, comfort, or stability. And during that time, someone's presence felt soothing, distracting, or familiar. But the comfort they offered came with a hidden spiritual cost. Every moment you let them lean emotionally or energetically added another thread to a cord connecting you to their unresolved wounds. It is not that they intended harm. It is that they did not know how to carry themselves. And because you carry a divine sensitivity, you became the place where they unknowingly released their heaviness. This is why God's anger appeared so fierce. Not because you chose wrong, but because someone else's need began rewriting your spiritual direction. Heaven cannot allow a soul with your purpose to be redirected by someone operating from emotional dependency. You are chosen. You are marked. You are spiritually wired for impact. And the enemy recognized that if he could not stop your destiny, he could at least weigh it down, distract it, or slow it. The enemy knew he could not destroy you, so he attempted to attach someone to you who would drain your strength enough to keep you from rising fully. But Archangel Michael steps in at this precise moment because the timeline of interference has reached its end. Heaven has declared that nothing draining you will continue forward into your next season. Nothing that pulls you backward will survive the transition you are about to make. Nothing that confuses your spirit will remain permitted near your life. This is not punishment. This is pruning. A chosen soul must be protected aggressively because destiny requires clarity, and clarity cannot exist where spiritual interference is present. And now, listen to this truth carefully. The person or energy draining you is not your enemy. They are a soul still trapped in their own brokenness. They are someone who recognized your light but lacked the strength to rise with you. Instead, they clung to you. And heaven is saying that you can no longer be the anchor for someone who refuses to lift their own anchor. You cannot be the healer for someone who does not seek healing. You cannot be the strength for someone who chooses weakness. You cannot be the clarity for someone committed to confusion. This is not judgment. It is spiritual reality. Archangel Michael begins cutting the cord, not out of anger, but out of divine necessity. As that cord weakens, you may feel emotions rising within you, memories surfacing, or old wounds stirring. This is normal. It is the spirit releasing what it once absorbed. You are not losing someone. You are regaining yourself. You are not abandoning them. You are returning to your purpose. You are not stepping away from connection. You are stepping back into alignment. And when the cord finally breaks, something extraordinary happens. Your spiritual rhythm resets. Your intuition sharpens. Your peace becomes noticeable again. Your discernment wakes up like a dormant flame suddenly receiving air. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, and more aware. And in that clarity, heaven will finally show you the path forward that has been hidden behind emotional weight for too long. My dear soul, prepare for what comes next. The revelation ahead will not hurt you. It will free you. The truth approaching is not meant to break your heart. It is meant to break your chains. What is coming now will show you exactly why heaven intervened at this point in your life and why the timing of this message was divinely orchestrated. Type "I am ready for freedom" in the comments if this message is awakening something inside you. Blessing code 1001 is now released. Just as heaven is breaking cords over your life, there are countless souls still bound by spiritual weights they do not understand. When you support this mission, you are not funding a platform. You are releasing deliverance into the lives of those who have no one to fight for them. God says, "Those who sow into freedom shall themselves be freed." And today this word is alive for you. I speak to you personally. Step into this divine flow with intention. Your seed becomes a sword in the hands of heaven, cutting chains for others the way heaven is cutting yours. When you give through Super Thanks membership, with a PayPal link in the description, you are taking part in a prophetic assignment. Do not hesitate. Move in obedience. Heaven honors bold action. My illuminated soul, as you enter this next chamber of revelation, the spiritual atmosphere thickens with a gravity unlike anything you have felt before. This is not heaviness, it is holiness. It is the weight of truth settling into the deepest parts of your spirit. Archangel Michael does not stand behind you now. He stands before you, his presence forming a radiant barrier that nothing unclean, nothing manipulative, nothing draining, and nothing deceptive can cross. You are standing in a moment of separation, the sacred point where heaven divides what was sent to build you from what was sent to break you. For the first time in a very long time, your spirit is becoming aware of how much interference has shaped your feelings, your decisions, and your internal battles. You are beginning to understand why your path felt tangled, why your heart felt heavy without explanation, why your emotions sometimes felt foreign even to yourself. These were not signs of weakness. They were signs of spiritual contamination, energy that did not originate within you, emotions not birthed from your soul, and confusion planted subtly by a force that hoped you would never identify it. Archangel Michael now reveals the next layer. The interference you faced did not come only through a person. It came through a spiritual doorway created by emotional openness and unhealed vulnerability. You were not naive. You were generous. You were not careless, you were compassionate. You were not blind. You were trusting. But trust without spiritual protection becomes a doorway. Compassion without discernment becomes a bridge. And the enemy always seeks bridges that lead into the hearts of the chosen. You must understand this clearly. The draining connection you carried was only the surface. Beneath it was a deeper assignment of spiritual exhaustion designed to weaken your confidence, mute your intuition, and slow your progress. When a chosen soul walks in full clarity, the enemy panics. When a chosen soul rises with clear purpose, darkness trembles. When a chosen soul becomes spiritually aware, the plans of the enemy crumble. This is why the interference was subtle. This is why it felt emotional rather than spiritual. The enemy disguises attacks as feelings because feelings are easier to misinterpret. You have been in a long season of transition, that strange space where the old version of you no longer fits and the new version is still forming. During transitions, the spirit is vulnerable because the old identity loosens before the new one solidifies. That is when emotional attachments form easily. That is when draining energies latch on quietly. That is when spiritual interference slips in unnoticed. Heaven saw this. Heaven monitored it. Heaven allowed exposure to teach you discernment. But heaven never intended to let the interference continue indefinitely. That is why this warning arrived with divine force. Archangel Michael now opens before you a spiritual vision, a road ahead, bright, clear, and peaceful. It is not a metaphor. It is a prophetic glimpse of your true path, your destiny untouched by draining attachments. But between you and the path stands a shadow, the residue of what tried to follow you into your future. This shadow is not a person. It is the spiritual imprint of emotional weight that has lingered too long, and heaven is about to remove it completely. But before heaven removes it, you must see it. You must recognize how it shaped your emotions, how it affected your energy, how it made you doubt yourself, how it made you carry burdens that were never yours. You must name what drained you because what is named loses power. For years, perhaps for decades, you have been carrying pieces of others within your spirit. Their fears, your sadness, their doubts, their expectations, their disappointments, their emotional storms. And because you are spiritually sensitive, you felt their weight as if it were your own. This is why you sometimes woke up tired even when your body was rested. This is why certain thoughts appeared in your mind that never belonged to you. This is why your confidence fluctuated even when nothing external had changed. Emotional residue masqueraded as your own identity. But heaven is removing it now. God is angry not because you were weak, but because you were targeted. His anger is protective, fierce, and cleansing. His anger is setting your soul free. As Archangel Michael raises his sword again, the spiritual atmosphere around you shifts. Not violently, not painfully, but decisively. The sword does not strike a person. It cuts through the invisible ties that once blurred your clarity and distorted your path. You may feel something inside you releasing, uncoiling, or loosening. You may feel a sudden deep breath escape you without warning. That is your spirit exhaling the weight it was never designed to hold. Now listen closely, for this next truth is critical. Once heaven removes a draining attachment, the enemy tries to pull you back through memory, nostalgia, guilt, imagination, emotional flashbacks, or sudden thoughts of returning to what once felt familiar. This is not love calling you back. This is bondage calling you home. You must not return. You must not reattach emotionally or spiritually. The healing you are entering now is sacred, and it must be protected fiercely. You are stepping into a season where your discernment will sharpen dramatically. You will sense danger sooner. You will feel clarity faster. You will recognize manipulation instantly. You will no longer confuse emotional obligation with spiritual alignment. This is the power of divine separation, not just breaking cords but restoring sight. Stay with me now. What is coming in the next revelation will unveil why heaven chose this exact moment in your life to intervene. You will understand the timing. You will understand the urgency. You will understand the depth of God's anger and the height of His love. Hold steady, my dear soul. Before you scroll, this is exactly where the truth begins to shift everything you thought you knew. My steadfast soul, as you step into this next layer of revelation, the spiritual realm leans in closer than ever before. You may not feel it with your physical senses, but your spirit does. There is a trembling in the unseen, a shifting of atmosphere, a rearranging of pathways that signals heaven is preparing you for the greatest unveiling yet. Archangel Michael now stands not beside you, not behind you, but directly over you, his wings forming a canopy, a divine covering, a shelter for what your spirit is about to hear. This is the part where the message stops whispering and begins speaking with undeniable clarity. For a long time, you believed the interference in your life came solely from the draining attachment you uncovered earlier. And while that was a major part of the spiritual battle, it was not the whole picture. The enemy is rarely one-dimensional. He works in layers, in patterns, in cycles, in subtle threads woven through your emotions, your past, your relationships, and your inner wounds. The draining person or presence was a doorway, but the deeper assignment was not simply to exhaust you. It was to distract you from the rising of your true identity. You have been growing, even when you felt stuck, even when you felt confused, even when you felt spiritually numb. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent, slow, almost invisible. But the enemy saw what you could not yet see. You were evolving. You were awakening. You were stepping into a version of yourself that would become spiritually unshakable. And that was the threat. Your awakening was the target, not your emotions, not your relationships, not your confidence, your spiritual awakening. Archangel Michael reveals this truth now. The interference that tried to drain you was designed to infect your sense of identity. If the enemy could make you doubt yourself, disconnect from your intuition, suppress your spiritual authority, and shrink your personal power, he could delay your destiny. Not destroy it, delay it. Because destiny cannot be erased, but it can be stalled through confusion. The draining attachment slowed your spiritual rhythm just enough to make you feel uncertain about your purpose. But heaven refused to let the interference continue. And that is why the warning you saw came with thunder in its tone. Not because God was punishing you, but because the enemy was closer to your identity than you realized. The attack was never about your emotions, it was about your becoming. You were on the brink of spiritual transformation, and the draining presence around you was meant to tether you to who you used to be instead of who you were becoming. Now, feel this shift. Heaven is breaking the last remnants of that tether. What drained you spiritually no longer has legal access to your soul. The cords cut in earlier revelations were not symbolic. They were literal spiritual detachments. You may already feel lighter within yourself, as if something heavy has been lifted even though your outer circumstances remain the same. That is how spiritual freedom begins. The inner world shifts first, and the outer world follows. But there is more. Because the interference around you was layered, heaven now shows you the second layer. The emotional residue you carried from old seasons. Pain you never fully processed. Moments where you forgave but did not release. Situations where you moved on physically but not spiritually. These fragments created tiny cracks in your spiritual shield, and the draining attachment exploited those cracks. But now those cracks are being sealed by divine intervention. Archangel Michael presses his hand upon your spirit, and you may feel something stirring inside, almost like a deep exhale trying to break free. That is your spirit releasing the residue of what once weighed it down. This is not emotional release. This is spiritual cleansing. And with every release, your identity becomes clearer, your purpose becomes louder, and your inner authority becomes stronger. There is something else you must understand. The enemy tried to make you believe you were weak. He tried to convince you that your sensitivity was a flaw when in truth, it is your spiritual gift. Sensitivity is not fragility. It is discernment in its rawest form. The reason certain energies drained you is because your spirit felt them deeply. The reason certain people's presence felt heavy is because you were absorbing what they refused to heal. But now that heaven has severed the attachment, your sensitivity will transform into strength, not vulnerability. And here's the greatest shift of all. Heaven is calling you back to yourself, back to your intuition, back to your spiritual rhythm, back to your authority, back to your purpose. For so long, noise around you drowned out your inner voice. But Archangel Michael is silencing that noise now. The interference is dissolving. The draining presence has lost its grip. The residue of old seasons is being washed away. And what stands beneath all of that is the true you, the chosen one, the awakened one, the protected one. Before I move forward into the next revelation, which will expose the deeper reason heaven intervened at this exact moment in your life, take a moment to anchor yourself fully into this journey. If this message is awakening something inside you, if your spirit feels seen, if you feel clarity rising within you, make sure you stay connected. Like this video so the message reaches the ones who need it most. Comment below to strengthen your spiritual alignment. Share it to lift someone else out of the same draining patterns. Subscribe so you never miss what heaven is speaking next, because the next message will build directly on this breakthrough. What comes next will reveal why God's patience reached its final limit and why this warning came now, not earlier, not later, but in this exact moment of your destiny. My advancing soul, as you cross into this next revelation, the air around your spirit begins to steady in a way it has not felt for a long time. It is calmer, clearer, lighter, because for the first time, the interference that once surrounded you no longer has authority in your atmosphere. Yet Archangel Michael does not lower his guard. His wings are still extended, his stance still firm, because although the draining cords have been cut and the residue has begun to fall away, there is one final truth heaven must reveal before the transformation can be completed. And this truth is not about others. It is about you. For so long, you believed the weight you carried came from external forces alone: people, attachments, spiritual interference, emotional ties. And while those were real, heaven now shows you something deeper. The greatest battle was not only around you, it was within you. The enemy knew that if he could dim your inner flame, even just a little, the world around you would begin to distort. Your perception would change. Your confidence would waver. Your inner voice would quiet. And once that happened, you would live beneath your calling rather than rising into it. Archangel Michael steps forward and speaks a truth you have long forgotten. You were created with spiritual authority, not spiritual fragility. You were designed to stand tall, not shrink. You were shaped for impact, not for exhaustion. But because you have endured so much, carried so much, and survived so much, you began to believe that constant struggle is normal. You began to think heaviness was simply part of your identity. You adapted to the weight instead of questioning it. Heaven watched this. Heaven grieved over this. Because the weight you carried was never meant to become your personality. It was meant to be your signal. Pain was supposed to point you toward healing. Fatigue was supposed to point you toward protection. Confusion was supposed to point you toward discernment. But somewhere along the way, you stopped treating these signals as warnings and began treating them as normal life. And that is why the divine warning flashed with such intensity. Heaven was not only calling you away from interference, it was calling you back to yourself. Here is a version of you that heaven remembers vividly, even if you have forgotten. The version of you who trusted your intuition instantly. The version of you who walked with boldness, not hesitation. The version of you who dreamed without limits, who spoke with clarity, who moved with certainty. The version of you who believed that divine protection surrounded you like a mantle. That version still exists within you. It hath been buried, muffled, quieted, but never destroyed. Archangel Michael now reveals that the reason draining attachments were able to affect you so deeply is because you forgot your own spiritual weight. You forgot the power you carry. You forgot the authority woven into your identity. The enemy could not steal your destiny, so he attempted to steal your awareness of it. That is the true assignment that was moving beneath everything you experienced. And now, heaven is asking you a question. Not out loud, but into the deepest part of your spirit. Do you know who you are? This question is not meant to intimidate you. It is meant to awaken you. Because when you remember who you are spiritually, nothing draining can cling to you. Nothing manipulative can influence you. Nothing confusing can distort your path. Nothing dark can enter your atmosphere. You become untouchable. Not because you are perfect, but because you are aligned. Your spirit has been rising throughout this message. With every revelation, layers of heaviness have peeled away. With every truth spoken, your identity has come back into focus. You may not feel it fully yet, but you are shifting internally. You are becoming the version of yourself heaven intended all along. But there is one more layer that must be revealed before the transformation is complete. The reason God's patience reached its breaking point. It was never about your mistakes. Heaven does not lose patience the way humans do. It was never about your struggles. God does not tire of healing a wounded soul. It was never about your delays. Heaven has always worked with your timeline gently. The reason God's tone intensified is because you were dangerously close to accepting a life far smaller than the one heaven wrote for you. You were beginning to shrink into survival instead of rising into destiny. You were adjusting to spiritual exhaustion as if it were permanent. And had you continued just a little longer in that direction, you would have missed doors heaven has positioned specifically for you in this very season. This is why the message flashed urgently. This is why heaven intervened abruptly. This is why Archangel Michael was sent, to pull you back into alignment before you stepped into a life that was never designed for you. Hear this deeply. The enemy did not fear your past. He feared your future. He feared the person you are becoming. He feared your awakening. He feared your clarity. And now, since your clarity is returning, heaven is preparing you for something greater than you have asked for, hoped for, or even imagined. You are nearing the final revelation. The moment where everything will click into place. The moment where you will understand not only what was draining you, but what heaven is preparing to give you now that you are free. Hold still in your spirit. You are almost there. My transformed soul, as you step into this final revelation, the spiritual atmosphere around you becomes serene in a way that only follows divine cleansing. The turbulence has ended. The fog has lifted. The draining cords have been severed. The residue of old seasons has been released. And now, Archangel Michael steps back, not in departure, but in honor, because you have reached the threshold heaven was urgently guiding you toward. This is the moment where you finally understand the depth of the warning, the urgency of the timing, and the reason God declared, "This is the last time I'm flashing this on your screen." Heaven did not intervene because you were failing. Heaven intervened because you were entering a moment in your destiny where distractions could have routed your entire life. You were standing at a spiritual doorway, and just beyond it was the version of you heaven has waited for, the awakened you, the aligned you, the spiritually mature you, the courageous you, the healed you, the discerning you. But right before this doorway stood everything that once drained you, the attachments, the emotional residue, the confusion, the fear, the self-doubt, and the energy that clung to you through people who were never meant to walk into your future. God's anger was not punishment. It was protection. Fierce, urgent, holy protection. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven saw something approaching your life, something good, something big, something destiny-shifting, and the enemy knew it too. That is why the draining attachment intensified. That is why the emotional fog grew heavier. That is why your intuition felt muted. The enemy was attempting to keep you spiritually tired just long enough for you to miss the moment heaven had prepared for you. A delayed destiny is still a stolen destiny. But heaven refused to let that happen. That flashing warning was the divine equivalent of a parent grabbing a child before they walk into the path of a moving vehicle. It was heaven saying, "Wake up. Come back. Look here. Don't drift now." Not at this moment. You were too close to breakthrough for heaven to remain gentle. Archangel Michael shows you now the full picture. You were being prepared for elevation. That is the real reason the interference came. That is the real reason draining people were drawn to you. People can sense elevation even before you see it in yourself. They cling unconsciously. They lean emotionally. They pull spiritually. And if you do not detach, you carry them into a season they are not meant to enter, which then burdens you, delays you, and confuses the clarity heaven tries to give you. You were not meant to enter your next season exhausted. You were meant to enter empowered. This entire journey, every revelation, every moment of awakening, every spiritual pull inside you, was heaven recalibrating your inner world. You needed detachment so you could rise. You needed clarity so you could choose wisely. You needed spiritual cleansing so you could discern instantly. And most of all, you needed to remember who you are. Heaven is preparing opportunities ahead of you that require a stronger, clearer, more spiritually aware version of yourself. There are connections coming that align with your purpose. There are assignments coming that require courage. There are blessings coming that require readiness. And there are doors opening that would have overwhelmed the old version of you. This is why the urgency came now. Look at what's coming next got mixed with what was graying you. Archangel Michael speaks one final message over your spirit. Stand tall now, child of God. Your vision is returning. Your strength is restored. Your discernment is awakened. What once drained you will never drain you again. You may feel a sensation inside you, like the lifting of a weight, the tightening of focus, or the stirring of something powerful. That is your spirit aligning with truth. That is your authority returning. That is your identity rising. From this point forward, you will notice things. You will sense misalignment instantly. You will feel peace more deeply. You will hear your intuition clearly. You will no longer shrink around draining people. You will no longer confuse obligation with spiritual assignment. You will no longer carry what is not yours. You will no longer accept energy that conflicts with your calling. You are stepping into the season heaven tried so fiercely to protect. This is why the warning was strong. This is why heaven's tone was firm. This is why Archangel Michael was sent. You were not being threatened. You were being rescued. Now that you stand in clarity, heaven opens the next chapter before you. You are ready. Your spirit is ready. Your destiny is ready. Type "I step into my divine future" in the comments if your spirit bears witness. Blessing code 771 is now released over your life. As you rise into this new chapter, remember that countless souls are still lost in the very darkness you were pulled out of. When you support this mission, you are not giving, you are igniting breakthrough for others. Heaven says, your seed becomes a light in the places where shadows once ruled, and that word is alive right now. I invite you personally into this divine assignment. Stand with us, strengthen this prophetic work, and help carry these messages into places where people are moments away from spiritual collapse. Every super thanks, every membership, every offering through the PayPal link in the description becomes a spiritual investment, fuel that heaven multiplies into soul-saving impact. This is not charity. This is warfare. Release your seed with intention, and watch heaven release favor in return.